morning. Thanks for staying with us. Websites around the world have been updating their policies because of a new set of privacy protections being put in place in the European Union, the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, a law which seeks to protect individuals living in 28 member countries of the EU. In this next technology correspondent Victor Matthias examines the policy and its far-reaching effects on African companies.
The world was rocked by a user data harvesting scandal, where personally collected information of over 87 million people that Cambridge Analytica began collating in 2014 was allegedly used to attempt to influence voter opinion. To scuttle chances of a repeat, the European Union has introduced the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, to force websites and social media owners to send out emails notifying users of a looming privacy policy update. But what is the big deal?
Is really privacy for the 21st century in the digital age, basically.
The African Union has a similar policy titled the AU Convention on Cybersecurity and Personal Data Protection. But what is the case in Nigeria?
Nigeria has passed thankfully, the Digital Rights and Freedom Bill, which has a comprehensive, 3 different sections on data privacy and protection, actually. In fact, some of the provisions there are literally equivalent or even stronger than the GDPR provisions. But it's been passed by the House and the Senate, which means it's passed by the National Assembly, but it's about to be transmitted to the President and to be signed. The day Nigeria signs that law, then we can say we have provisions of data privacy.
The GDPR requires companies to be explicit in their efforts to seek consent from consumers before collecting their personal information.
This law gives data owners, that is you and I, the ability to access our data anytime from data controllers. It gives us the ability to reject and say, I don't want you to use my data anymore. It gives you the right to say, I want you to erase all my data. That's a right to be forgotten. It gives you the right to object to processing of your data.
Failure to comply to the GDPR will attract a fine of either 4% of the global revenue of a company or 23 million euros, whichever is higher. And in light of the data harvesting scandal that rocked Cambridge Analytica, social media giant Facebook says it has blocked all avenues to avert future occurrences.
We've raised the bar on the app, like the app review process. So if you're a developer and you're building for our platform these days, the kind of the rigor and the expectations of what you are doing with the data and why you're doing the data is just going through what I'm calling a higher bar these days.
The document may have been written to benefit Europeans. It, however, will have widespread ramifications.
You are based anywhere in the world, but you process the data of Europeans or anyone in the European economic area, you are affected. That literally means every social media platform. It means that whatever you do with that person's data on your website, you're subject to GDPR.
African companies now need to, at board level, so I'm not even talking at employee level, at board level, corporate governance level, they need to call in experts to look at how they use data, how data is protected, how they share data, what are their marketing plans that touch on people's data. It's really a big deal for African companies right now.
The GDPR will further give consumers the right to access data companies store about them, as well as the right to limit the use of decisions made by set algorithms, amongst others. Victor Matthias, Channel Television News.
Joining me to throw light on this subject is an information technology expert, Mr. Ibukun Adeni. You're welcome to the news at 10.
Thanks for having me.
Now, besides protecting data and the privacy of people, what's the significance of the General Data Protection Regulation?
One of the major problems with privacy is, first of all, in Nigeria, for an example, if there's a lot of people that don't use their credit cards to buy online, their ATM cards or whatever, to buy online because they're not comfortable with the system. So if our consumers, our customers know that the laws are strong and are protecting people, they'll feel more comfortable. So it's a win-win situation. There's the argument of the case where it holds back innovation. You know, for people working in things like artificial intelligence, this law may be, because with artificial intelligence you need large amounts of data. You need to teach the computer, so the computer needs a lot of data, so with that it's a gray area. But if you update your privacy policies, if you let your customers know, if you do your due diligence properly, and your customers will feel more comfortable even sharing more data with you than just sneaking in and just taking in things without anyone's permission.
Now, some US sites have already blocked people in some parts of the world from getting data. So how can Africa, especially Nigeria, play catch up and come on board?
Any serious Nigerian business, it doesn't take much. You just have to do a little bit of work, update your privacy policy, get your IT experts to store data properly, maintain the highest level of encryption and things like that. It doesn't take so much. Like in 2011, there was a massive breach. I know right now this is being pushed by the Cambridge Analytica problem, but in 2011, there was a bigger problem with Sony PlayStation. There was about 77 million people credit card information stolen. And that time, I think they were coming out with a product or something. So for PR reasons, they didn't tell anyone things had gone. So many people had fraudulently used other people's information without, and you get some money missing in your account and you don't know why. You don't know where it's coming from. And the company doesn't say anything. So one of the key things about this rule, for me, the part I like the most is where it accounts for you have to report any data breach within 72 hours. For me, that's even the most fantastic way. So when you have a data breach, you have to report it to your customers within 72 hours. So those that have to go to the bank, change their card, it creates trust between the company and the consumer, allowing relationships to grow and even allowing IT to grow better.
And now, on a final note, do you think companies in Nigeria have the means to support requests from individuals, such as in accordance to probably deleting data, especially when they leave the company they employ?
The great thing about IT is computer is computer. In Nigeria and America, it's the same thing. Yes. If you delete something from a computer, it's gone. If you don't have to save what you don't need.
Well, would they be willing to do that, especially when the person is not in their employ?
I think they should. I don't see any reason why you shouldn't, unless they are intentionally trying to be malicious. Let me give you an example. During the last elections in Nigeria, there was a massive data breach. I was even privileged to see, like a database of like every Nigerian that did the SIM card registration. So I could just put your phone number into that database and I will see your address, your age, so many information about you. I saw this firsthand, so, and this database was in the hands of politicians and people were using it for election purposes, which is very, very dangerous. That information could have, and I'm sure it has been used for many other things that we can't really account for right now. So, but nobody is talking about it. So if any company that doesn't have the will, I think they are liable. There needs to be a form of enforcement. We need to go after these guys, and everybody should be able to account for what they are using everyone's data for.
Mr. Ibukun Adini, thank you so much for speaking with us on the News at 10. Water is essential and must be made available to every citizen in Anambra State. And that's what the Governor, Willie Obiano, is saying as he inspects 2 rural water scheme locations in Awka South local government area of the state. The need for potable water to be available cannot be overemphasized. This is why Governor Willie Obiano is revamping all existing water schemes across Anambra State. The governor is here to inspect the progress of the work done on the new water scheme.
This is a very important water scheme. It supplies up to 7 communities: Nofia, Amobia, Awka Metropolis, and a few other places. This is an inspection work because we just released fund for the revamping of all the water schemes in Anambra State.
Once this place is finished and up and running, we plan to hand it over to community.
His next port of call is Nibo community, where significant progress has been recorded so far. From there, he moves to Nkwo Junction, where the reorganization of the drainage system is ongoing to avoid flooding.
A lot of the silting is going on. The rains are coming fast, and we are trying to ensure that we don't have flooding in this place.
For the people, the projects are a sign of better things to come. And for the governor, everything must be put in place to ensure the happiness of every citizen, in line with his promise to them during his governorship campaign. And Anne will be telling us about the OMO bills that will boost the liquidity system as the central bank injects them in. Anne has business news for you.
Indeed, Melinda, thank you very much. 215.9 billion naira. That's the worth of inflow from maturing OMO bills from the Central Bank of Nigeria, and it is expected to support system liquidity in the country's financial system next week. But analysts expect the liquidity mop-up and forex intervention by the CBN to put great pressure on the overnight lending rate, which of course declined by 1,525 basis points this week to 4.42% against last week's close of 19.67%. Inflows from OMO bills worth 429.9 billion naira, Treasury bills of 99.2 billion naira, 305.6 billion naira in bond maturities, as well as the monthly federal allocation of 319.2 billion supported liquidity throughout this week. Proceedings in the Treasury bills market were predominantly bullish on the back of buoyant liquidity during the week. At the primary market auction, 4.9 billion naira, 24.8 billion naira and 19.8 billion were allotted for the 91-day, the 182-day and the 364-day bills. The auction was more than twice oversubscribed. Anticipated squeeze in liquidity position is likely to put pressure on yields next week. Let's go to the Nigeria stock market. It has fallen to its lowest level in 6 months, recording some of its heaviest declines in the month of May. The all-share index fell by 6.3% in 4 trading sessions this week to 36,819.29, while the total value of equities dropped nearly 650 billion naira to 13.3 trillion naira. Traders and analysts have attributed the current trend in the market to risk aversion by foreign investors. They are saying that increasing yield in Treasury bonds from advanced countries, especially the U.S., may have shifted focus from the local equities market. But on the other hand, total turnover of shares traded this week were higher at 2.6 billion units, worth 84.7 billion naira in 19,715 deals. And still on Nigeria Stock Exchange, some good news this time. After almost 10 years, the market is expected to see initial public offerings by companies this year. Sources say that 2 companies, we're talking about Skyway Aviation Handling Company and Nigerian Reinsurance Corporation, are preparing for IPOs this year, while Singapore-owned Indorama LME Petrochemicals Limited plans to public float next year. Now, this is coming after South African telco giant MTN announced plans to list its Nigerian unit this year. IPOs dried up in Nigeria after 2008 crash aggravated by a global financial crisis. Let's move away from the markets now. South Africa's Energy Department says it plans to raise the retail price of petrol in the country by 5.5% from June the 6th this year, while the price of wholesale diesel will rise by 6.4%. The department plans to increase the price of petrol by 82 cents to 15.79 rand per litre in the commercial hub of Gauteng province, while the price of diesel will go up by 85 cents to 14.1 rand per litre. Stronger international oil prices, weaker rand exchange rate, and a large deficit carried over from the month of April are all reasons for the planned increase in fuel prices. That's business news for this week. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Anne Nwawado. It's back to you, Melinda.
Still ahead on the news at 10, Nigeria's Super Eagles lose 2-1 to England in an international friendly played at Wembley Stadium in London. That's on Sports News. Stay with us.